This idea of psychedelics being banned on research was really a catalyst to put them into this classification called Schedule 1, which means that they have no real medical use, there's no therapeutic potential, which at the time, even in the era of the war on drugs, was not true. There was quite a bit of research, as you saw, as Dylan showed in his presentation, going on around the therapeutic use cases of psychedelics in psychiatry. One of the reasons I think that perhaps it wasn't as I guess ubiquitous was because the field of psychiatry was also evolving during that time. And so today, we're at a place in time where there's more openness around different approaches to therapeutic intervention in psychiatry. But from a pharmacological perspective, these compounds, LSD, MDMA, psilocybin, DMT, are all considered psychoactive. So are all of our antidepressants, so are the major and minor cannabinoids. And I don't think that necessarily there's anything specific about each molecular structure that makes one more dangerous than the other. I think that there are classes of compounds that have maybe adverse effects or have more activity at specific receptors. But the psychedelics specifically, there's an ample amount of evidence that shows they've been therapeutic. And I think, as Dylan sagely mentioned as well, the mechanism behind this in terms of molecular biology and pharmacology is not so clear. But we do know that the one thing psychedelics do have in common is the activation of one specific receptor called 5-HT2A. And there's also some debate on whether or not this receptor exclusively alone is responsible for the hallucinogenic effect, and maybe some other types of psychoactive or subjective experiences, psychoactive effects. So I think one of the important things to realize is that a lot of these substances are also inspired from nature. So we see a lot of companies looking at new drug discovery, and psilocybin is found in mushrooms. LSD is actually a semi-synthetic compound. You need a specific type of compound, natural compound, to actually synthesize LSD, et cetera. And so, there's no real specific commonality between these compounds per se structurally, but again, it's their pharmacology that kind of unites them. But I think it's also very important to realize that making molecular tweaks can also alter the subjective experience. And so, as Dylan mentioned, he showed you MDMA, a DMT, and 2CB on a slide, which are all three different types of compounds. One is something called MDMA was considered like a phenethylamine, so is 2CB, but it can also be considered an amphetamine in some regard. And so, just because a compound belongs to a specific class doesn't mean it's necessarily going to behave exactly like other compounds from that class, which is why segregating based on experience is so important right now.